Hey, Nick, how are you?
Davin, good to see you.
It is great to see you. I am so excited for people to get to hear you and experience you today. And for people who are tuning in right now, today we're here with Nick Craig. Nick Craig is the author of the book Leading from Purpose. He's also the president and founder of the Core Leadership Institute and is really a trailblazer in the purpose space, has been doing this for a very, very long time. And I could sit here all day long and talk about how great Nick is. But Nick, I'd love if you would do the honors of sharing with our listeners today who you are, your journey, your story that led you into this purpose space, particularly from a perspective of leadership.
Okay, happy to do so. Um, so here's the thing. I don't think any of us come to purpose. I don't think any of us went to college and said, I'm going to get a degree in purpose. Actually, I know a friend of mine who actually got her PhD in purpose, just got one. So she's probably the first one. So I think for all of us, it's probably an interesting journey as to how we got here. So most of my career, I've been working on leadership development and what does it mean to make really amazing leaders in the world. And about 15 years ago, I was working with a colleague, Bill George, who was teaching at Harvard Business School. And he was teaching a course on authentic leadership for the second year MBA students. And what was interesting was as we looked at the curriculum, we knew that purpose had to be in there. It was one of 12 topics. But if we looked at the ones that we thought were sexy, we had some other ones that we thought were sexy, but we knew we just had to have purpose in there. It was kind of a placeholder because we couldn't not have it in there, but we weren't sure exactly what we were going to do with it. And the reality is that for the most part, it was the worst section. It was got the worst evals. So in the process of us writing the architecture for authentic leadership, he said, well, I'm going to give you all the topics that aren't working, right? So I took that and a couple of other pieces. And I basically stepped back and I really looked at everything that had been written and started to say, well, what is it really we need purpose to do? And what I realized is that purpose needed to be something that people felt in their heart and their soul and helped direct them as to who they wanted to be as an authentic leader. It needed to be at the core. We saw it in the diagram at being at the center. And what we needed to do is figure out how we actually did that. So I came up with some things that would help do that. And it turned out that the first place we got to test it out was with 30 of the top 300 at General Electric. Now, I can tell you right now, you never want to pilot anything with that group. There's just no, I mean, seriously. I mean, Davin, it was kind of like, I mean, seriously, they're loaded with guns going, okay, come on down, right?
Oh my goodness.
What was interesting is that it happened right as the recession was happening. So 2008, 2007, 2008. And it turned out that everything else that they were getting taught was useless. And as leaders came back to help teach the course within a couple of years of initiating this stuff, they came back and they said, that thing we did on purpose was the only thing that helped. And I was like, well, that's interesting because at the time I wasn't actually sure that the purpose stuff was worth keeping. But these guys and gals basically said to me, they said, listen, when everything else gets stripped away, what are you going to stand on? I was like, I hadn't thought about that. Okay, your purpose. And they told story after story after story of in their darkest nights, how when they stepped into their purpose, it gave them something that they couldn't get any other way. So I began to realize that this thing had legs. Now this is in 2008, 2010, so that's 10 years ago. So from there, this thing took off and we've worked and run programs around the world. We've worked with over 20,000 leaders from companies ranging from the faculty at West Point to the crew at Ben & Jerry's. Can't think of two more extreme opposites into the spectrum. Or guys doing oil and gas in Oklahoma to retailers in Australia. And what we've discovered is that at its core, your purpose is the magic that differentiates you from everyone else. So what is it you can do that no one else can do? What is it you can see that no one else can see? What is the unique set of glasses that if you put them on and lead from that place, the imprint and impact that you have is the one that only you can have. And in some sense, that's what this work has been about. And that's what has been generated as a result of all this. So I would say I came to this as a cynic and a sort of a realist and going, really, okay, we got to do this. And now, I mean, about 5-6 years ago, I ended up writing a Harvard Business Review article called From Purpose to Impact. It's gotten republished there 5 or 6 times. So it's now in the sort of the list of ones that always gets put into the packet. And it's just really interesting how it's gone from being this sideshow to, now every time I open up something or I listen to some leader someplace, they're all talking about purpose. So, Davin, that's sort of how I got here.
That is awesome. What I love about that is the fact that you were cynical. And I think today, so many companies still are, so many leaders still are. They view purpose as fluff, right? I love how I said Ben and Jerry's and West Point, right? Not that Ben and Jerry's is fluff. I mean, they have great ice cream, but they're an incredible organization and have great processes in place and all those things. But people look at purpose sometimes as kind of, really, is that what we're going to lead with or lead from, to use the title of your book? So you approach this place from the same standpoint at one point in time as many of the people that you coach and speak to today, and are able to initially build that connection point. How do you help them see that value so quickly? What does that transition look like, moving from this place of being cynical about purpose to, you guys really need to understand how truly important and impactful this is?
Yeah, so the key is you don't go straight at it. Right. The key is you say, okay, come on, let's tell some stories. Look, purpose resides in the stories that we have experienced and the journey that we've been on. Okay, it's this thread that goes through our life. And the best way to access it is to tell the stories. So we don't even talk about purpose initially. We talk about authentic leadership. We talk about who are they at their core, and how do they help them tell some stories that are defining stories in their life that many times they've never told anyone. And in the process of telling these stories, what shows up in the room is purpose. Now, at some point we go, there's purpose standing right next to you. And they go and look and they go, you're right, that's interesting. And they go, oh, it's been standing here all your life. Now, would you like to try on that suit? Because it's a really great suit. It's only going to be fitting you, and you're going to look really good in it. And then the minute they put it on, it's as if everything changes. Right? It's like, how do you own the suit that you were always designed to wear that you never knew what it was or where it was? But once you see it, you know. Once you see it, you know. And we all have experiences like that in our life where, we don't know that we're in places where all of a sudden everything just makes sense. So that's in some sense, and once they have that visceralness to it, you can't take it away from them. I mean, I think what we love most is the people who are lawyers, accountants, the highly analytical people who always sit in the back of the room like this for the first day or so of one of our things, and they're just sitting back there going, "You've got to be kidding me. Why do I have to do this?" And most of the time, I'm in programs where people don't have a choice. They have been told they have to do this, whether they like it or not. Right? So I'm not going and saying, "Hey, who wants to do purpose?" It's more like they go, "Really?" And those are the ones who become the greatest advocates for this thing, because once you get them to the other side, they'll never go back. The people who are easily convinced the other way in 2 days. Right? So yeah, it's always interesting to watch. I mean, try doing it with Dutch bankers of all people. I mean, I can list some of the people we've done this with, and every one of them you're going to go, "Really?" But I think that, look, I think everybody wants to know the answer, but nobody wants to be told they don't know it.
That's good. It's so many times we see that the greatest cynic becomes the greatest advocate. It happens over and over and over. People who try to prove things wrong or try to resist against something, once they try on that new suit. What a great visual, by the way. I love that idea of purpose being this custom suit, this custom uniform that can only fit you, that once you put it on, it's transformational.
Yeah,
right? That it brings out the very best and aspect of everything that you are and were created to do. What a great visual.
think of all the Marvel characters that we've seen in all the movies. Each one of them has a unique outfit that defines them. Okay, it only fits them. And they have things and tools that only work for them. And the same thing's true for each one of us. The challenge is no one has ever told us. We've never been, in some sense, the real power of the kind of experiences that I take leaders through is I don't tell them about purpose. I just have them say, go look in the mirror. What is it you see? Well, then we sort of, at some point, we label it and say, well, I think that's your purpose. And they go, okay. And so that's the label we give to it. But in some sense, they don't care about the label. What they care about is the suit. There you go.
And there's power in a second, and a little bit here. I want you have powerful way of approaching purpose statements to help people truly articulate what that suit is, what their superpower is, what they, how that shows up in life every day. But before we get to that, I was thinking, I was going to say this and then I wasn't. Now I am going to say, I just can't get the image out of my head. But we all have different Christmas movies that we watch every year. And one Christmas movie we watch every year is Fred Claus. And for those of you who haven't seen Fred Claus, Kevin Spacey plays, this villain type accountant type guy, right? And he typically plays a villain in any movie he had been in. And, his job is to shut down Santa Claus and just basically end happiness for the world. And then you find out that, why he's that way. And he always wanted to be a superhero, right? And so then he finally, gets his Superman cape in kind of the closing moments of the movie. And it transforms who he is, how he shows up, and transforms the entire narrative of the movie, the impact, everything. And I kept on having that visual in my head of, these cynics or these people that are kind of like this. And then once you put on that thing that was specifically meant for you, it transforms every aspect of who you are and then how you show up in life every day and the impact that you can have on others. And when companies can harness that, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's everybody says, well, can we get our engagement scores up? I'm like, that's the least you'll get.
At a bare minimum.
If that's all you need is your engagement scores up, you don't need this.
Well, and that's the thing is too many companies try to use purpose as a tactic to drive a number, to get engagement scores up, or to be socially responsible, or to be trendy, or what. That's not the essence of purpose. In fact, I got to say it because it's probably my favorite quote of yours. I have all sorts of stuff in here, but when you said, you talked about all the different things that companies look for. This is so great. Seeing story after story like this forced me to realize that something was happening with purpose that was different from all of the other beautiful parts of authentic leadership. Purpose isn't one of the 12 elements that companies all talk about. Purpose is the stage on which all the other elements create great leadership. Oh,
I lost all my hair figuring that out, but yeah.
So good.
It's true. I mean, the bottom line is if you think about it, if you look at all the skills and capabilities that any of us need to have when we're leading in any context, right? And you have a set of strengths that go with that. You have also a set of weaknesses that go with that, and all those things. The beauty of purpose is it's the foundation that all of those stand on, because it defines how you go about doing those in a way that's yours. Okay. And so in some ways, we want to be, everybody says to me, here's what I want on my leader. I want somebody who has clarity about what they're up to. They're willing to have courage to do the hard right versus the easy wrong. They're willing to be highly vulnerable and transparent. And what you see is what you get. And then I go, well, that's great. Let's put that list up. Now, let's look around this room, and I want you all to grade yourself on a scale of 1 to 10 of how well you do these. Oh my God, the room is so silent. Because what everybody realizes is they want something that they have no belief that they could actually achieve. And then what I say is well, what we're going to do in the next 2 days is we're going to have you experience your ability to do this at a 10. And then they go, really? I said, absolutely. You're going to be a 10. It's going to be your version of a 10. It's not going to look like anybody else's. So that when they finally get to that place of purpose, and then I say, well, so now what's the score? They go, oh, it's now a 10. I says, well, that's interesting. What changed? Only thing that changed is they stepped into that place of purpose.
They put on the suit.
They put on the suit. And the bottom line is the suit, just like in the Marvel thing, they take the suit off and they're just a normal lughead. They put the suit on and now everything sort of shifts. So that's the opportunity of, in some ways, I look at purpose as it's the magical extra 10% that everybody wants and needs that nobody has. Mm. In every company, you look at every company and you say, look, if I look at two companies that make pretty much the same thing, and I go, I think BMW and Mercedes. Okay, you can get in either one of them. If you don't know which one you're in, you don't know that which you could be like, which of these am I in? I don't know. They all look the same, right? But the question then becomes so how do you compound interest over time is the most amazing thing. How do you over time become something that is so much more compelling than the alternative? So, two of the companies I work with are Lego and Ben & Jerry's. And they're both examples of what the power of compounded interest is over time. Right? They both dominate their space. They didn't start that way, but they just kept doing what they were doing to the point where all of a sudden everybody woke up and went, oh my God, those are people that are really amazing. Well, for 20, 30 years, they weren't amazing, but now they are. Right? That's the power of purpose, is when you know it, it's like where you end up is in a pretty amazing place as a leader, as an organization, right? And there's uncertainty, there's risk. If you're not both scared and excited at the same time, there's no purpose around. Mm. People who are overly confident, and they say, well, everything's great, and here's my purpose, and I go, there's something missing. Mm-hmm. There's no vulnerability in that conversation. Mm. But if they say, I'm really excited, but I'm also scared shitless because here's the concept, and here's what I'm like, I go, okay, now they need the suit, because without the suit, they can't get there. So the trick is, in some ways, is less about knowing what your purpose is, and is more putting people in situations where without purpose, they can't get there.
So good.
Because then they actually say, there's something missing and we need it. So most of the organizations I work with and with leaders, they say, why? I say, well, why do you want us to do this? They say, well, we used to have it, whatever it was. We don't think we have it anymore. And we're about to get our lunch eat and we all need to get it back again. I go, okay, we can say that's easy. And I say, we'll get your mojo back. So you could say what this really is about getting your mojo and being able to own access to your mojo when you need it. That's what this is. If you want to call it purpose, that's fine. But to some people, I never use the purpose word. I say, this is about your mojo. And they go, got that. I understand that. So we want to put a bunch of people who don't have mojo and a bunch of people who do have mojo, and they're making the same thing. Which do you think is going to end up doing better? Right?
It's the ultimate catalyst. It's the ultimate catalyst. I mean, and it's proven time and time again. It's so many leaders are looking for results and ROI. I have not come across a situation where purpose isn't authentically and genuinely introduced into a circumstance or to a company where the outcome is not exponentially better. I've never seen it happen. I've never seen it not happen. So you wonder why it's not a more widely accepted philosophy. What do you think gets in the way? What is the resistance other than the vulnerability? Because the vulnerability is key. You nailed on that. What else?
So I don't think it's resistance. I think what gets in the way is success. Look, I was with a group of people in their early 20s and was talking about this. They said, okay, so is this going to get me a job at Goldman Sachs? Is this going to get me into special forces? And they gave me a list of all these goals of things they want to do. And it says, it may or may not, but what it will do is it will differentiate who you are when you show up so that they know who you are and they remember you. Okay. So, I think in some sense, the interesting thing for most people is that the life has actually been working pretty well for most people. Okay. Or many people. I think we don't need purpose until we get um, waylaid and it's not working. And nothing's going to get us out of there. And then in some ways, purpose is most helpful. Many of the stories that I have people tell are the stories of being sidelined and the challenging parts. And I go, well, what got you out of it when nobody came to save you? Well, that's purpose that showed up. They may not have seen it then, but that's really one of the big access points to where purpose is. So I'm not sure people resist it. I think people are comfortable in the context they're existing in. And purpose, look, when everything's working, having purpose is okay, but it's not going to make a huge difference. When you used to have it, you don't have it, and you get purpose and you got it back again, oh baby, we're talking rocket fuel. But then you experience the gap between the where you were versus what you can step into. You experience that gap. So different times, different organizations. Some organizations aren't ready to do this, right? So, my view is that everybody at some point is ready, and the trick is to be around so that when they are ready, you get to help them.
That's awesome. So good. And I know that the core of, I keep using core because it's the name of your organization, but the core of how you help people translate that from, their head to their heart in terms of articulating that has been this process that you have really refined. And I don't want you to, lay out your entire process here, but if you could just give us a glimpse of, okay, I know what my purpose is, or I had my purpose and then I lost it or whatever. But, how do I articulate very clearly what my super suit looks like, what my purpose looks like, what my mojo looks like, so that
Right.
I show up differently than anybody else in any other room that I'm in?
Yeah. So the secret is to go back and access those times where you had the suit on. So in my view, there's three sort of groups of stories that we all have. And one of those groups tends to be the one that is the most clear access to the suit. So one of them is magical moments from your childhood. Now, I don't know about you, but I didn't have a magical childhood, but I did have some moments that I would associate with being pretty magical. They were the times where the non-magical things went away, right? So for some of us, that is, and I had a guy who talked about playing baseball between two houses and a wall and how they made up the rules and redefined the way that winning was and whatever. And of course, in that was his purpose. And his purpose is, to find the way to win with that, where the rules don't matter and you got to make them up anyway, right? And he's a banker. And I was like, well, that's interesting. But he does community banking. And I was like, makes complete sense that that's what he does. And that's what his purpose is. I was like, oh, you're perfect for this. Because it's, where does traditional banking meet the crazy real world where it doesn't make any sense, right? And he's dealing with lower income people and all this other stuff. I'm like, perfect, right? So the other next grouping is what we were just talking about, which is we've all been humbled in our life at some point. The plan didn't turn out so well. And in many cases, the thing that got us out of it wasn't the phone call that occurred or the fact that we went from first grade to second grade or whatever, as much as we actually basically got ourselves out of it ourselves. And in those particular situations, in those moments, purpose was probably 100% present. You had to wear the suit to get out. Had to be. The third place that we find access to these experiences is something that we have a deep passion for that really sort of consumes and sort of owns us in the context of we sort of become one with it. And whether it's skiing, playing tennis, running, whatever it's playing hockey, soccer, whatever the case may be. And when people tell those stories and they step into that place, you can see them as they shift into this sort of altered experience of themselves. But in that is in all of these are a metaphor that we can end up pulling out and saying, well, here's what your purpose statement is. Now, the purpose statement isn't your purpose. It's just a way of you accessing it. So my purpose is to wake you up, to truly wake you up and have you finally really, really be home. And it's what I do all the time. Right? And it's kind of interesting that what I do for a living, given what my purpose is. Okay, now I didn't figure this out linguistically until probably 15 years ago. But if I look back in my life, the consistency of the fact that that's what I've always been doing has been enormous. Right? And it's like you can see all the way back. And you go, damn, in the end, that always ends up being the case. Right? Now, we use different words. I have another version of it, which is somebody said, what you are, you're the Gandalf that knocked on my door. And I made the big mistake of opening it. And just like Frodo, this damn ring thing showed up, and then my life was never the same. And the ring is my purpose. And you said, you got to go do your thing. And then once in a while, you show up in my life, right? And it's all hell breaks loose, because every time you sort of pull me out, shake me off and say, okay, now you got to go do this. But that's who you are. Now, it's a fun way to think about what my purpose statement is. Okay, but it's the same purpose. Those two statements are saying exactly the same thing. And on a given day, one feels more fun to use. And when it comes to Halloween, one is more interesting to wear.
One is more interesting to wear.
Seriously, now I have a Star Trek uniform I wear as well. So, Jean-Luc Picard. Okay, so, all I'm saying is that, if you're not having fun with it, it's not purpose. If the curious kid inside of you isn't fully engaged when you say your purpose statement, it's something else. It's mission, it's duty, call to action, whatever you call it. But purpose has got to have a bounce to it. So
good. So good. I think
you got 3 days of 3 days in 10 minutes. There you go.
3 days and 10 minutes. That's powerful. Well, three things that you said there. So, that I want to make sure people didn't miss in that. One is the thing that kept on was common, right? Whether it was that first phase, which was going back to kind of, where the magic happened and where all the non-magical things went away. The second, being where were you humbled and you felt, and right. And then the third, kind of being in that integrated present space, is that they constantly call us to look back, right? All of those call us to say, time out. Let's look back, because purpose isn't something that you never had. Purpose isn't something that you attain. Purpose is something that was always there. Like you said from the beginning, it's sitting right beside you. Let's go back and find where it showed up in your life. What did that look like? How did that make you feel? And how can we articulate that? And so many times, I think people make the mistake of writing purpose statements in the context of who they want to be, or as a marketing slogan, or as a sales
version.
Aspirational.
My purpose is to be the white light cheerleader that ignites you into possibility. And I go, I got that. There's probably a person on this planet for which that's their purpose. That ain't you. You are a she-devil of craziness who's meant to light people's hair on fire. And if they don't like it, they can just jump out of a window. And I go, you're right. My mom said something just like that. I says, absolutely. Now, dear, just own it. And just be just thrilled with the fact that you are a mischievous, crazy nut. And that's that's what your purpose is. And that's going to let you take on projects and do things that other people can't do, because you're not going to know that no is an option, and you're going to do it anyway. And we need people like that, just like we need the silly cheerleader that thinks everything's possible. But I'm sorry, that one's already taken.
So there's too many people trying to be someone else when they really just need to be themselves.
Well, the challenge with purpose is that it is a word that is wonderfully misused to cover a lot of ills that everybody wants to have go away. And they want something magically that just takes all of it away. Challenge with purpose is it is going to put you into places of mischief and challenge and struggle and opportunity and joy and fulfillment but it's going to be really a wild ride.
Yeah,
It's going to be your wild ride as opposed to somebody else's.
that's exactly right. And
That's it.
when you embrace it, it makes all the difference in life. And that's why, kind of to bring this full circle on, how people often think of purpose as a fluff word or term or feel good, or the cheerleader that's like everything's possible, right? Purpose is messy. It's gritty. It like you said, it is going to cause you to be uncomfortable, vulnerable, challenge you on who the real, most authentic version of you is, to look back and see where you showed up differently than others. I mean, these are things that we're not taught to do them. It's not natural for us to do them. It's uncomfortable for us to do them. But the journey, the wild ride, isn't towards purpose. The wild ride is from purpose. That's why I love the title of your book, Leading from Purpose, because it's something that's always been there. It's within us. We were born with it. It's unique to us, but it is going to cause you to not just roll your sleeves up and get messy. It is going to cause you to get real, raw, vulnerable, downright dirty, gritty, and put your face in the mirror to show yourself who you really are.
There you go. No installation required.
No installation required. That's right. That's awesome. So good. Well, as we have a few minutes here as we wrap up, I'm really excited. I know they're going to be speaking at the Purpose Summit in May 11th, 12th, and 13th. We are excited to have you with us, but May is still a far way off. So as we wait between now and the Purpose Summit in May, what are some things that you think that we didn't discuss already that people need to hear right now, that you can't wait till May? If you wait till May, then you've missed it. What do people need to hear right now? And then maybe give us an insight into what you will be sharing in May.
So here's something that I think everybody listening needs to do right this minute, or in the next 10 or 15 minutes. They need to answer this question, because it's the purpose question that will determine whether you live a life of purpose or not. The question becomes look, what's the one or two things that only you can do in your life? Now, what I'm really referring to is that if I look at you in your life, I look at the job you have, the skills you have, I look at you and your family life, the role you have, there's a lot of things that anybody who had the skills and it was as good looking as you would equally do, just by the nature of being in the role and having the skills. You're just going to do it. So we take all that away. The question is, what's left? What is it that only because you see it, that it's possible that it might happen? Because if you don't do it, no one else sees it and it won't happen. That's purpose. Now, you don't need to know your purpose statement to be able to ask the question and think about it, especially now, especially if we live in the world that we currently live in, the craziness. And I would say, relative to our family members and the world we live in, what's the one or two things that only you can do? Okay. And for everybody that I do this exercise with these days, they step back and they come up with a couple of things that by definition both excite them and scare them. That's purpose. And I don't think it's as important to know what your purpose is than as it is to act and lead from your purpose. And if you're acting and leading from it, it's going to be there anyway, whether you know the statement or not.
So good.
Okay.
So good. And what will you be sharing on a little bit?
What am I going to share on when I'm there? I'm going to basically go into more detail on the journey of why does it really matter right now. I'm going to be talking about some examples. I'm going to bring some beautiful stories from some of the people that I've worked with, then their journey and how purpose has transformed their lives, and really go into more detail of how do you access this? What does it mean to be in this? Okay. So yeah, lots of stories, which is really what it comes down to.
Awesome. Awesome. So good, Nick. I know that there are people today that maybe for the very first time as they listen to this, realize they have a superhero suit that's been sitting next to them all this time, that's customized just for them, that they need to put on. And I can't thank you enough for your work in this space. I appreciate you for changing yourself from a cynic of this to an ambassador and then a trailblazer of purpose, especially in a time when this is needed more than ever. And in any other time in our lives, this is needed. So thank you for being who you are. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your book. Thank you for everything that you're doing in this space. And I look forward to seeing you at the Purpose Summit in May.
Thank you, Davin. And I'm looking forward to playing with you on this journey together.
Yes. And what a wild journey, fun journey, and rewarding journey.
Exactly. Whoever thought that you and I would actually end up hanging out together? Because Purpose had she said, they're going to hang out together. They don't know it, but here's what's going to happen next.
That's right.
Welcome to Purpose.
Couldn't have happened any other way. Well, thank you again. Really appreciate you. For those of you listening today, again, here with Nick Craig, author of Leading from Purpose, president and founder of the Core Leadership Institute, and internationally known speaker and thought leader in the purpose space. And of course, you could follow him on LinkedIn and everywhere else where purpose can be found. Nick, thank you again. For those of you listening, till next time, we'll see you on the next episode of the Finding Purpose Livecast.
See you.